how important cash on cash return is. I won't buy a property unless I am making a 40% cash on cash return. Why would you invest in anything besides real estate if you can make 40% returns? How much money you should be making on your money and why it's important. First off, when there's inflation, if you don't make whatever inflation is, you didn't make any money. This is something that it took me until I was later in my life to figure out. Wealthy people don't operate like this. This is how middle class and lower class people think. I can't save money because I don't have enough money to pay my bills. If you start at that premise, you will never, ever save money. Thank you for watching the Real Estate Doctor podcast. If you get value from this episode, which I know you will, please hit the subscribe button, like it, comment, do your thing. Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Doctor podcast, where I am here to educate, inspire, and entertain you sometimes. So today I want to talk about, eventually, how important cash on cash return is and what it is and define it. So I'm going to do that as a step-by-step thing. First off, nobody cares what their cash on cash return is if you don't have any money. You also don't care if you don't know how to save money. And what I want to talk about first is, how to start saving money, and when you have saved money or invested money, how important your rate of return is, and how to see how important your rate of return is. And then cap rates, which we talk about in real estate all the time, and then cash on cash return or return on investment, and why that is the most important gauge, at least for me, when I'm investing in real estate. What I will tell you is I won't buy a property unless I am making a 40% cash on cash return. So if you were going to take $10,000 and make 40% a year, that means you would make $4,000 a year with that $10,000. Now, do you know any bank that you can do that? Do you know any stock exchange that you can do that without a highly, volatile stock? I mean, I guess you can do it with crypto, but it can go down like that per day. But with real estate, that's my number. It has to be 40% or more. Now, 40% is my bottom. So a lot of times you can get over 100%, and if you actually use the Burr method perfectly, which, listen, it's hard to do that every time perfectly, but if you use it perfectly, then you have an infinite rate of return. Infinite rate of returns means you have no money in the deal, and you're making money. I mean, so if I told you, hey, do you want to buy a house, put no money down, and it'll pay you, would you take that? Yeah, that's the Burr method when you do it perfectly. So let's first talk about getting money. First off, when you're younger, or wherever you are in your life, in order to get money, you need to trade time for dollars. That's basically it. That's all you can do. And once you've done that, you now have a job. Let's say you get out of college or out of high school, because I'm not a big, you have to go to college guy anymore. So let's say you get a job. What you make let's say $1,000 a week, right? So with that $1,000 a week, the way people usually work, and let me start back here. A lot of people, everybody thinks hey, I came from money, or I'm wealthy or something like that, but this is not the case. When I was, younger, under 10, we were lower class. My family did a great job of getting us to what I would call the upper middle class. Anyway, we were lower class, we were on welfare. My dad was a prison guard initially. My mom didn't work when we were kids. Then my mom got a hairdresser job. But eventually they worked themselves into a pretty big company. You guys all know Boeing. My dad bullshitted his way to a job as a sheet metal assembler, which they put the rivets in the helicopters. And my mom did, tremendous. My mom, any of my brains come from my mother. And she just went, neither of them graduated high school. And, Boeing paid for my mom to go to college, and my mom became an accountant, and pretty good one. And she ended up making 3 times the money my father did. But that being said, one of the things I was never taught as a young man was to save money. It wasn't even on the table. Never even discussed it. Every time my dad got a raise, and we're talking like, maybe he got, obviously inflation, maybe he got $1 raise. My dad got $1 raise. He came home with a new car, like literally the next day. He'd come home, say, hey, Tina, I got a raise. Blah, blah. Next day, he's got a brand new car, and my parents were hardworking, super hardworking, got up early. They did their jobs. They were really hardworking people. So none of this is for lack of effort. But, when I became like, 13, 14, and I wanted money, you had to get like working papers to work in the United States for when you were like 14. So I got a job delivering newspapers in the morning. And basically my parents said, listen, if you want money, you got to go make money. But I was a kid. What did I want money for? I wanted to buy music CDs. I'm sure you guys, don't even know what they are anymore. But anyway, I wanted to buy CDs. I wanted to buy stupid stuff. So I made money. I started making money when I was 14, and I'm telling you, I never stopped making money. And I worked from 14 all the way through 18. When I was in my junior, senior years of high school, I was working 32, 40 hours a week and going to school and making money. And I was blowing that money. At no point did my family ever tell me I should save. At no point did they ever tell me I should save any money. So do yourself a favor if you have children and mention, this is something that it took me until I was later in my life to figure out, but wealthy people don't operate like this. This is how middle class and lower class people think. They think, I can't save money because I don't have enough money to pay my bills, right? If you start at that premise, you will never, ever save money, right? You have to start at the premise of two things. One, I'm going to save first, which I know sounds crazy, but if you get a new job, you didn't even have that money. So if you're going to make, I'm just going to use $1,000 because it's easy. If you're going to make $1,000 a week, take 10%, and that's savings. Start with that. Don't ever go, well, I got to pay this, I got to pay that, I got to pay this, I got to pay that, I got to pay, and oh man, there's nothing left over. There'll never be anything left over. When I was a kid, I remember I used to go out and, I'd have to I'd go on a date with a girl, and I was like, I don't hit my credit card limit. I call up, limit's $186. I hope she doesn't order a bottle of wine or, whatever it is. This is crazy. You need to save first. I don't care if it's 5% of the money. Save money first. You create a habit of saving, which is a habit that I didn't get until I was into my mid-30s, and I'm 46 now. So I'm telling you from somebody that knows, listen, I have blown more money than some people will ever make. I guarantee you that. And I'm not proud of that. But I will tell you what I tell my children now is like, listen, you want to do a chore? My 8-year-old likes to, he's like, oh, I want money for Roblox, right? Well, I'm like, fine, you can have money for Roblox, but you've got to save a certain percentage of that money. Now, I don't say, fine, you can have the money. You have to do a chore in order to get the money, and you have to save that money. Now, my 6-year-old is really good. He saves everything. He doesn't spend any money. But, for us that it's not a good habit for, you need to save first. Wealthy people save first, and you will always find the money. And my point with that story about like, hey, going to dinner with a girlfriend or something, you always find the money, and you always will find the money. You need to make a determination in your brain right now that for every dollar you bring in, and you should do it right now. You should listen to the Real Estate Doctor podcast and change your life right now. If you are making $1,000 a week, take 5%, 10%. I mean, I have a friend, I think it's insane. I don't do this. He takes 40% and has done for years and years and years and saves it. Now, let's talk about saving. So let's say you listen to me and 40% is extreme. Just like any kind of diet, you can't like go to the gym and like attack or stop eating. You can't do things in the extreme. You got to start and build momentum. So if you've never saved before in this method, start at 5%. If you're making $1,000 a week, you can save $50, right? So start at that, and then you'll get some momentum. You start to see that the money adds up, and then you'll get addicted to saving that money. Now, when you save that money, well, what do you do with this money that you saved, and where do you save it? So first off, most important thing I think for everybody is you should have a 6-month minimum rainy day fund. Now, especially when you're younger, you know, I don't think it needs to be a year, but it should be 6 months. And I can tell you that, man, when COVID happened, thank God I had that, because I was, you know, I basically sold all my stock. I probably shouldn't have. And I told my wife, well, if we don't have to work for 2 years, we don't have to, you know, I'm good. Now, I didn't think so, but I never had a day off the whole time. And it was a challenging time, and we made it happen, just like you made it happen. I applaud everybody that's went through that, and we all made it on the other side. And just remember, there'll be another challenge in all of our lives, and we'll make it through that too. So now, I think your rainy day fund should not be in anything speculative. It should just be in a savings account, checking account, something, but it's for savings. And trust me, don't dip into that. Hey, you're watching The Real Estate Doctor and you want to invest real estate and you got 6 months of your earnings saved up. You can put money on a house. Don't do it. You need that peace of mind. Something's going to happen in life, and there's nothing like knowing that, you know what, if something happens, I don't have to immediately run out there and think of a new career or, you know, find a job. So first thing you should do is you start a habit of saving. Second thing, you should save a rainy day fund. Now, after you save a rainy day fund, you should start investing. So what should you invest in? Well, first off, you know, if you're saving $50 a week, it's not really, you know, you can't really buy a property with $50 a week. So, you know, I would say put it in the stock market. Buy some cash value life insurance. I don't really care what it is that you're saving. And buy crypto. I don't care, right? Now, my thing when I say I don't care, because I'm telling you how much money I've blown in my lifetime, that if I put all my money in crypto, all of it, not all my money, all the money that I was saving in crypto, and let's say I bought it all high, and it turned into half the money. Let's say over 5 years I saved up $500,000, let's say $10,000, and the market tanked and it's now $5,000. You'd be like, oh my God, you saved that money and then you lost 50% of it. Guess what? You still got 50%. You know what? If you didn't save, you wouldn't have anything. So you need to force that habit, invest it in something, and most of the time, all of these things will go up over time. It's just a matter of when. Even crypto, like crypto goes up and down. I like when things are cheaper, you know? I like putting more money in. And when you buy and you can buy crypto every day, you can set something like $5 a day. You're not going to miss $5 a day. That's just you going to Starbucks, you know? Actually, Starbucks is probably more money. You know, you can buy stuff, you can set up all these things now where you invest so much money per day, and then you don't have to figure out, like, am I buying high? Am I buying low? Who cares? You're going to buy high and you're going to buy low, but over the average, you're accumulating and you're getting a great cost basis. So I think you should invest in something. Now, when you get to have it's going to take you a little bit of time to accumulate some money. Now, when you get to you know, a certain number, right? You know, that you decide that you're going to invest. You know, some people say, well, you know, you can make 3% on your money, you can make 5%, you should make 10%, you should make, I said 40%, right? So let's talk about how much money you should be making on your money and why it's important. First off, when there's inflation, if you don't make whatever inflation is, you didn't make any money. So if inflation is 7% and you put money in a savings account and it made 3%, you lost 4%. Now, it's better than losing 7%, but you still lost 4%. Now, so the first, and they call this the hurdle rate. The first thing you need to do is get over this hurdle rate of inflation. Now, inflation comes down, like I think now it's around 3%, you know, and you got money in a savings account of 5%, well, you're making 2%, right? So let's talk about making 2%. Now, there's a rule called the Rule of 72, and I think it's fantastic. And the reason it's fantastic is it shows you how important the difference between a certain rate of return over time is. Let me open up my computer because I can never do math quickly when I'm videoing these things. So How the Rule 72 works is you take 72 and you divide it by your rate of return. So let's say you're making 2%, right? So that means that's 36. I can do that math. So there's my entertainment. I did 72, but divided by 2 and got 36. So that means, what's that 36 mean? That means it will take you 36 years to double your investment. So how's that sound to you? You know, you save $10,000, it's going to take you 36 years to have 20. That sucks, you know? But, you know, that's what people are doing. Like, if you think you made a 7% return in the market and inflation was 7%, you're at zero. You're at zero, you know? So let's just do the math. If you make what you could put money in the bank right now at 5% in the United States. So 72 divided by 5. Instead of taking 36 years, it only takes you 14 and a half years to double your money. That's better. Put it in a savings account. Now, savings rates, you know, banks aren't going to pay you 5% forever, but 5%. Now, I'm not going to deduct the inflation. So really, you're only still making 2%. But let's say you can make a 10% return. Now, instead of 14 years, you double your money in 7 years. How about what I say is the minimum for me, which is 40. So 72 divided by 40, and that means I double my money every 1.8 years. 1.8 years. So this is why it's important what kind of rate of return that you can get. Now, some people, obviously you can get that with crypto and stuff like that, but you can't maintain that over a long period of time. I'm going to show you how you can make 40% by buying a rental property, and you can maintain. This is not speculative. You know, I don't understand why more people don't see this. You know, do I want to put $10,000 in the stock market, which I have no control over, and a bunch of people make a ton of money, you know, yada, 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 like running those companies? Or, and I'm not saying that's a bad investment. I have stocks too, right? Or do I want to own a piece of property where I have some control in the situation and I can make 40% of my money? Now, everybody's like, how do you make 40% of your money? You know, real estate, the math I'm doing, I make 3%, 4%. I'm going to explain that. Let me get to that. So I just want to make the point that it's super important, the rate of return that you get, that you're compounding at, because it can make the difference between you taking 36 years to double your money and me doing it every 2 years, especially for people like me that started with no money. We need to accumulate. You know, there's a whole different problem when you have tons of money. There's a whole different problem, which is how to preserve it. And trust me, I know when I was, you know, poor, I basically was like, yeah, I'll deal with that problem. I have no problem with that problem, but that's a real problem too. This is not for this podcast. So rate of return is important because it takes you less time to double your money. You can also use the Rule 72 to determine, you know, how much money your money is losing its purchasing power due to inflation. But I'm not going to go into that. I just want to let you know, maybe Google it, check it out. It's pretty depressing. So, you know, we're all losing purchasing power every day. That's why you need to invest the money, get over the hurdle rate, and make a return. But listen, if inflation's 7% and I'm making 40%, I'm still making 33%. And real estate is an inflation hedge, so that real estate just keeps going up in value. So, you know, I'm also benefiting from that inflation. And when they say that inflation was 7% for houses, it was like 30%. It was like killer. So let me talk to you now. How can you make 40% or more on your real estate investment? Now, first, cap rate. What is cap rate? Everybody talks about that in real estate. Cap rate is capitalization rate. And I'm just going to break it down to you super simple here, right? It's how much money does the property make with no financing. So you buy a $100,000 property, and if it net means after all expenses, net makes you $10,000, it has a 10 cap rate. So if it makes you $5,000, because you're taking 10,000 divided by 100, it's basically 10%. I don't know why they don't call it like, you know, it's the 10%er or the 5%er. That's really what a cap rate is. And it has no accounting for what your financing is, because your financing is truly unique from somebody else's financing. So it's basically how people, especially in the commercial world, are taking properties and making them apples to apples. So, okay, this property's got a 5 cap, this property's got a 7 cap, this property's got a 8 cap. And cap rates, like a really good cap rate is 8%, like really good. And as you get into A-class properties, like in New York, you might get 2%, 3%. And some people wonder, like, why would somebody buy a property and make 2 or 3%? But they're also that's cash on, that's the cash that it's spitting out, but it's also going up in value. And a lot of people believe that if you buy in the middle of Manhattan, it's going to go up more than in value than a C neighborhood in Canton, Ohio. But that's not true. Well, nothing is ever totally true, but you can make some really great appreciation in C neighborhoods anywhere that is comparable or higher than A neighborhoods. So if people want to invest in A neighborhoods because they think they're going to get more appreciation than C neighborhoods, that's a false reason. If you want a tenant that is better than a tenant in a C neighborhood, I would tell you that's not always true either. Have you ever had a lawyer as an as a tenant? I have. Have you ever had high-end white collar people are pain in the ass tenants too? So in any event, I kind of diverged there. So let me get back to cap rate. So a cap rate, if you buy a $100,000 property, 8 is like really, really good. So how, Jay, are you saying that you can make 40% on your money if you're saying that a good cap rate is 8? And listen, there's definitely, you can get 10, in certain places, but that's what cap rates are. Now, cap rate is if you bought the property cash. So you bought it for 100 and it makes $10,000. It's got a 10 cap. Let's use that, right? 10 cap is really good. That means you're making 10% on your money, and let's minus inflation. If you did that, it'll take you 7 years to double your money. Did that math quick. Now, let's say you bought that with financing like everybody and their mother does, right? So let's say you bought a $100,000 property, but you only put $20,000 down. So what is your investment? Your investment is not the $100,000. It's the $20,000. You had $20,000 in a bank account. You put that $20,000 over here. Now, the property will not make the same $10,000 as it did with that, because now you will have a mortgage, right? So let's say the mortgage takes half of that. So you go from making $10,000 to making $5,000, right? But your investment was $20,000. What is 5 divided by 20? It's 25%. So you can take any property and basically any analysis and do this. And all kinds of softwares, like I love this software, it's called dealcheck.io. It's fantastic. It's like $29 a month, and it has all the right inputs. It tells you what your cash on cash return, your appreciation. It'll show you 30. It's amazing. So check that out. Obviously, I'm not getting a commission. Deal check. So that's how you make a property that has a 10 cap make a 25% return. So how do you get 40% return? Leverage. Everything is with leverage. And you want to look at your return on investment or cash on cash return. You really care how much money is the money that I have in the deal making me. And then I compare it, well, can I make that somewhere else? So let's use that example where you're making 25% cash on cash or your return on investment. Can you take $20,000 and make 25% in the stock market? I don't know. I mean, I guess you can, you might, of course you can. I don't want to say that you can't. Can you do that on a regular basis? Absolutely not. People, even the best fund managers don't do that, et cetera, et cetera. Can you make that with crypto? Sure you can. But can it go up and down? And, can you make that on a consistent basis? Can you sleep at night with that investment? I don't know for you. But I can tell you that I can buy a rental property that after all its expenses, I'm making 25% on my money, and my number, I just use that math, is 40%. I can sleep at night with that. And that's consistent. And that's not aggressive. And that's conservative. So financing helps you leverage your return. Now, I'm not going to get into Burr method. I have a podcast about that. But the Burr method can even make that number even crazier. But just financing a property, you can get yourself to making 40 or more % return on your investment. Now, why would you invest in anything else but real estate I'd love it. Just leave some comments down below. Why would you invest in anything besides real estate if you can make 40% returns on your money in real estate? Some people will tell you, well, I can't find those numbers. Well, yes, you can't find them in your backyard. Some people will say, well, I don't want to buy in that neighborhood. Well, you should consider buying in that neighborhood, because a 40% return on your money is every 2 years your money doubles, as opposed to what? You're going to make 10%, and now it takes 7 years. Did I do that right? Yeah, I did that right. All right, so basically, the last thing I want to say about cash on cash and cap rates and this whole subject of saving and why you should invest in real estate, not anything else, is that don't be fooled by people marketing to you that a property is making 57% return on your investment, as opposed to a property that has a cap rate of 8%. These are different denominators, and they're calculated differently. So when I first started investing in real estate, I would see like, oh, somebody's got this property in Memphis and it makes 37%, they're marketing it, this property makes 37% on return. And then I would have another guy call me like, hey man, I can get you in Jacksonville 8 caps. And I'm thinking, why would I go for an 8 cap when I can make 37% in Memphis? But they're not the same language. You're not doing apples to apples. So if you want to compare something, you want to compare the same denominator, basically. So if I'm looking at cap rates, hey, all right, let me now take the Memphis property, and what's the cap rate on that? Not the return on investment. What's the cap rate? The cap rate might only be 6, but the financing was fantastic, And so, what's more important, cap rate or cash on cash return on investment? For me, it's return on investment. I want to see what my money is really, really doing. For me, I would have taken, okay, it's 37% in Memphis, and there's a cap rate of a property in Jacksonville. Let me put the same financing on the property in Jacksonville, if I can get the same financing. And now, this thing makes 18%. Actually, Memphis is better, So you have to compare apples to apples. Now, people can go crazy too. Let's say you're looking at your return, and I did the math. I figured out what your net is. People will start adding back tax benefits and all this other junk. I don't care about that, but it's not wrong. It's not wrong. They just have a better way of spicing up what their deal looks like. But you need to go and break down, is this deal really better than the deal in Jacksonville or not? So it's very important. A, did you save money, right? Save money. Make a habit of saving money. B, when you save that money, get a rainy day fund. C, after you have a rainy day fund, start investing in something. And when you accumulate enough dollars, I would invest it in real estate and pay attention to your return on investment. You will never make more safer than you do in real estate. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope I educated you. Have the best day of your life.